What's up, guys? Welcome to the 330 Sports Show. My name is Justin Coffin. Today is Saturday, January 10th. We don't normally do weekend shows, but we're doing one today. I'm going to bring on Greg Kirchner as a guest here in a minute. Got Millie behind me hanging out. Tore down all my Christmas crap this weekend, so my basement is a complete mess, but I'm sure a lot of you are dealing with that as well. But on today's show, as you know, most of the time we get into Ohio State, we get into Cleveland Browns talk, we get into the Cavs, Guardians, stuff like that. No different today, but we're going to go two segments today. First segment, we're going to focus on the Buckeyes, a look at their season, a look at the college football landscape. It's an absolute mess right now with the transfer portal, NIL, all that stuff. We're going to talk about the championship game upcoming. Probably not get into our picks, but just discuss a little bit about Indiana and Miami and their path to get there. Segment 2, we'll talk about the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, Stefanski is out. Myles Garrett set the sack record. We'll look ahead to the draft, all that kind of good stuff, and talk maybe some NFL playoffs. Greg and I are also going to pick our maybe ideal next coach for the Browns, and maybe throw in a few fictional ones as well, just to have a little fun with it. So I'm going to bring in Greg here. And first of all, Happy New Year, Greg. And Larry David says you can't say Happy New Year after January 3rd, but we have not been on a podcast together yet this year. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good to be here.
Yeah. So let's just start with the Cleveland Browns, with the Ohio State Buckeyes. And here's kind of the topics I thought we would start with. So the Buckeye season, 12-0, you beat Michigan, you get to the Big Ten title game, you lose to Indiana, you still finish number 2 overall into the college football playoffs, and obviously a loss to Miami on New Year's Eve in the quarterfinals. But was this season a success in your eyes?
Yeah, and I think we talk about this a lot, about how, where we are as Buckeye fans. Being a Buckeye fan, we're obviously very spoiled in a good way, and we're used to success coming off a national championship. With the talent that we had this year, the way this season went, the standard is win a national title. So it's in trying not to sound like an entitled Buckeye fan, you can't say the season was a success, in my opinion. Now I think there are different degrees. I wouldn't sit here and say that the season was an abject failure, considering the two teams that we lost to were playing for the national championship, and they were both very winnable games. But when your standard is to hang a banner and win a title, and you fall short of that, and you had the ability to do that, it's not a success. And I think some things went wrong in those last couple of games that we'll certainly get into. And back to the drawing board in some areas, and there's, certainly areas to improve the team on. But yeah, I got to say, not a success. Not a failure, but not a success. We didn't achieve our ultimate goal.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty much in agreement with you there. It is very hard to repeat, especially in this new format. Obviously Georgia did it 21 and 22, but they only had to go through, 4 teams. But they, you still got to be good enough to get into a 14 playoff, but they did it. And before that, it's been quite a while. So Ohio State, it's hard to win one national title, let alone back to back. Ohio State's never done that before. So I think that was the team goal heading into the season. But you snap your 4-game losing streak versus Michigan. So that is obviously a huge success. And then if you look at the Indiana game, you lose by 3 points to what looks to be an absolute juggernaut of a team. You miss a 27-yard field goal. You basically gave up another possession at their 5-yard line because your quarterback just slips and his knee hits the ground. Maybe 6 inches short, or else we're talking about Ohio State maybe being the 1 seed, maybe playing Oregon last night, and a whole different things. But it didn't work out that way. But again, you got the Michigan monkey off your back, and but like you said, you don't hang banners for beating Michigan. We all know it's so important to beat that team up north, but at the end of the day, in this new college landscape, you have to win the national championship. As crazy as that sounds, and that's just as high as the bar goes. Like, what other team? Maybe. I still, you can't put Indiana in that yet,
Right.
But then, we'll see what they do next year. But what other team goal is that high? Maybe Nick Saban's Alabama back in the day, maybe Kirby Smart's Georgia 3-4 years ago. But besides that, I don't think any other team has as high of standards as Ohio State and its fans. So
it's like it's just to that point. I think like when Alabama beat Oklahoma, there was like a soundbite of Venables walking off the field, I think talking to his wife and say, "Man, it's a hell of a season." And I just kind of laughed. And it's just like, even Oklahoma, even mighty Oklahoma, they make the playoffs, they get to the quarterfinals, they blow a huge lead. And their coach after the game is kind of saying, "Man, what a hell of a year this was." Whereas like, you're right. Like, success in the eyes of an Ohio State fan and an Ohio State team is definitely a different like colored lens than most anybody else in the country. And again, it's your blessing and it's your curse. I'd love to be happy about the season. I'd love to, celebrate the fact that we beat Michigan, celebrate the fact that we had as smooth and efficient of a regular season as you could possibly have. But, when you've been blessed with the success we've been, you can't get excited about the way it ended.
Exactly. And so many people, obviously you want to do both. You want to beat Michigan, you want to win the Big Ten, and you want to win the national championship. But you juxtapose last season versus this season. Okay, you went into Eugene last year, you lost right at the buzzer. You lose to Michigan on a we still don't know how that we lost that game, but you lost that game. You go into the playoffs as the 8th seed, then you roll off of victories against Tennessee, Tennessee or the number 1 team in Oregon, Texas, basically in a home game for them, and then Notre Dame. And you juxtapose that with this year, you're 12-0, you'll lose to Indiana in the Big Ten title game, and then you lose in your first game in the playoffs, the quarterfinals. So, a lot of people put that hypothetical out there, me included, and I was like, yeah, you want to beat Michigan, but at the end of the day, if you have to pick, you'd rather lose to Michigan and win the national championship. They're not bringing back teams from they're not bringing back the 2006 team and saying, "Oh, we beat Michigan, but we lost in the national championship game." They're bringing back the 2014 team. They're going to bring back the 2024 team and the 2002 team because they won the ultimate prize. And I get Woody Hayes said back in whatever year, if you can't beat your arch rival, you shouldn't be able to win the national championship. I get that. And that was true back then. We are in a whole different world now.
Yep.
And, and I get some people might hate that, but that's the truth we live in. So
there is that old school mentality, but I would just quickly ask anybody that, like, if you think beating Michigan is the most important thing, then how'd you enjoy these last 2 nights of watching the semifinals without the Buckeyes being in it? Because it kind of sucked.
Exactly. And that's, I'm going to let you put out your analogy there because I was texting with you yesterday about doing this podcast, and I spent about 6 hours yesterday. I had the day off. I'm just like putting all my Christmas shit away. Like, Christmas is awesome. It's great, but it is so much work for 6 weeks or whatever. If you put up your stuff a little bit before Thanksgiving and a little bit after New Year's, it is so much work. And you compared it to Groundhog Day, and I'm going to let you run with that analogy real quick.
Yeah, no, it's like, because I was, reflecting on the loss and, the watching the New Year's Day games, knowing we were eliminated, and kind of like realizing that maybe, you want to win the title, obviously, but the worst part of all this is I feel like that loss, like, added about 3 weeks to all our winners, because just that hope. Like you think about what the past week would have been if we were playing in a semifinal game. You're at work and being like, "Oh, Buckeyes play Thursday night, can't wait." Like the life is so much about like the looking forward to and the hope and the anticipation of something, even if it doesn't end up being work out the way you want it. At least you have that like excitement, anticipation, and hope. What they say in Shawshank, like hope is a good thing, hope is the best thing, or some shit like that. But it's true.
Yeah.
So like losing that game, it basically just like took that period from December 31st to January 19th, when the national championship game is. And it's like, now we have no Buckeyes. We obviously have no Browns. Yeah, you have the college football playoff, you have the NFL playoffs, but you don't have your team. And effectively just winter started at that moment. And now it's kind of is a shitty time of year. Like you said, you're unpacking you're packing up your Christmas stuff. It's now yesterday was yesterday aside, it's cold, it's shitty, it's windy, it's snowy. It's just not the most exciting time of the year. Everybody's cooped up, and you kind of just added 3 more weeks of that. So that's sort of the biggest bummer, is the loss of the hope and the kind of the extension of winter. So
yeah,
it was Groundhog Day. The Buckeyes saw their shadow and gave us all 3 more weeks of winter, unfortunately.
And any Game of Thrones fans out there knows that a big saying in that is winter is coming, and winter is a cold, vile bitch. That's very unforgiving. So, unfortunately, winter is a little bit longer this year. We did have you had 60 plus degrees down in Columbus yesterday. So did we here up in the Youngstown area, and we're thankful for that, because it's little glimpses of hope for 2026, and spring is not that far away, but when you're in it the day to day, it kind of sucks. So right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about that game, those 2 games, the last 2 nights. And you got 4 teams basically in the semifinals that really hadn't been there. Oregon's been there, but they haven't won anything. They've never won a national championship. Indiana has never won a national championship. Miami, it's been 25 years since their last national championship. And Ole Miss recognizes, I believe, 3 championships, like 59, 60, and 62. But those were not like AP polls. Those were probably like, oh, Southern voters gonna put Ole Miss Rebels up in the top of the poll. Like that was.
I do declare.
Foghorn Leghorn voting on the national championships back in the South like 50, 60 years ago. But like these 4 teams basically have never won anything in the past 3 decades or 2.5 decades. But Miami trying to get back into the blue blood, status. I would put them right outside of a blue blood status. If they win this year, I think they're right back in it. Indiana, like literally a movie script of what they've done the last 2 years. But your thoughts on these final 4 games and Indiana and Miami, I guess, as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the Buckeye world, it was kind of refreshing, I think, for the country to see some new blood at this spot. It's been a long time. I think of Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State really being kind of the dominant forces over the past 10 years. So it's been good to see. And the Indiana story is obviously just incredible. We've talked about it for a while. It continues to get more and more incredible. Again, what Cignetti's done, we've talked about how great of a coaching job this is. And there'll be a lot of people talking about that. I think I use the analogy that like Herb Brooks in 1980 is probably the gold standard of any coaching job. Yep. If that's a 10 on the scale, what Cignetti's doing at Indiana, especially if he can finish it off next week, probably got a 9.8 on that scale. It's right up there. It's a Cinderella story. There's going to be documentaries, movies made about it. And what Miami's doing is pretty incredible too. Kind of barely getting in. A lot of people questioning whether they should be in, and really just dominating games with old school toughness at the line of scrimmage and really good quarterback play from a veteran quarterback. And the Ole Miss story was great too, with all the turmoil they went through and how well they played. Oregon, unfortunately, the narrative on them kind of continues to be not being able to deliver in the big moment. They really, I'd love to know like what is, and unfortunately we got bit by this, but in a game, I'm sure you could go through historically, like in playoff type games or maybe in any type games, when you throw a pick six in especially early on in a game, what's your winning percentage, and especially on the first play. I feel like that game was over before it started, which is a little bit disappointing, but it is really great to see. Now, I will say, and I'm curious to your take on this, because the media is always going to, you're always spinning the story, and I feel like the Indiana story doesn't need any more juice than it seems to already have, but they have to, like, they can't resist to be like, is this also like one of the greatest teams of all time? And I am going to say, like, pump the damn brakes on that.
Yeah.
What they are doing and the run that they've done in these first two playoff games, winning in dominant fashion, is incredible. What Cignetti has done, like I said, you're putting it at the top of any coaching job that anybody's ever done in any sport, and maybe in any leadership job anybody's ever done in life. It's way up there. So I'm not taking away from that. But this is a team that almost lost to Iowa. This is a team that probably should have lost to Penn State. This is a team that Ohio State played about a 3 out of 10 on the scale and lost by 3 and held them to 13 points. So before you start comparing this team to LSU in 2019 and some of the great all-time teams, like, can we just say, like, this is an amazing story. They're an amazing team. They're on an incredible run, and just leave it at that. That was kind of bothered me a little bit yesterday. But again, it's phenomenal.
I always think when everyone wants, and we do this too, we're guilty of this too. We always want to rank things, and we always want to like group things in like the best, and put things in tiers and stuff like that. And like I said, I'm guilty of that. I do that all the time just for some fun and perspective. But I think your point is well taken. I think, just let this team be a great team in the 2025 season. Obviously, from a talent perspective, they are nowhere near the 2019 LSU team. They are probably nowhere near any of those Miami teams of the 2000, 2001. Those guys were like stocked with NFL guys and just blew through everybody in the competition. Is this Indiana team maybe the best coached team out of that team? I would say Coach O does not hold a cigarette to Kurt Cignetti, or probably Larry Coker or Butch Davis, whoever was there before him. But like some of the great teams of all time, they have a few things in common. One, head coaches are usually very, very at the forefront. They are very elite. They have a great quarterback, or at least a great leader at quarterback. And if I hear the word synergy one more time, I might lose my mind. I love, and I texted you guys, a couple of you guys, this last night. I really like Mendoza. Part of me wants to be like, this guy is so phony, but I think he's so comes off so phony. He's so real. Like, he is legitly so real. He comes off phony. He comes off a guy trying to sell you like a computer, or try to sell you some stocks or something like that. He is so in tune. Like, it almost sounds like you said, some of his speeches are rehearsed, like he practices them leading up. And I've come to really just like him. I think he's a legit good dude. I know his mom's battling MS, but he comes from a really good family. His brother's the backup quarterback. And to go along with the story, he's going down to play in Miami. Sorry, I took a little tangent there, but to go back to your point, is this one of the great best teams of all time? No, I don't think it is. But I do think it's maybe from a team perspective, maybe the most locked in, best coached, most confident team I've ever seen. I would not put them up in the most talented or the great, you can't have hypothetical matchups of 2019 LSU versus 2025 Indiana or 24 Ohio State or whatever teams you want to throw in there. You can't do that, but it's a fun hypothetical. But no, this Indiana team is not talented like those teams, but they are maybe the most confident group I've ever seen.
I think you're exactly right. And I know I keep going back to like the 1980 U.S. Olympic team, which neither of us were alive for, but there are so many parallels because part of all this is the selection of the players that are out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about, and this is your lesson. If anybody is ever like, I mean, talent wins a lot of games. Like talent wins a lot. Talent wins over a lot when the talent difference is large. When the talent difference is small, execution, coaching, and having the right people is really kind of what makes that difference. And this is a classic example. If you go back to 1980 and how that team was selected, they did not select the most talented players. They selected the best group of whatever it was, 20 guys that could go out and do the best together. And I feel like that's exactly how Cignetti's built this team. He's looking for football players. He's looking for very specific things. Maybe things that aren't really measurable. He's looking at what you put out on tape over, how fast, how high can you jump, how much can you bench, and all that kind of stuff. And this is the classic example of when you get a perfect group of guys, and like you said, completely locked in, completely selfless, and you get a coaching staff that is just the attention to detail with what they do and every play, and they never let their foot off the gas. And they, if you listen to, there's some great 1 minute sound bites out there of Cignetti talking about relentless effort, 6 seconds of relentless effort, play to the standard, all that kind of stuff. He goes it's all coach speak, but they live it and you watch them do it. And it's a beautiful thing when that all comes together. So yeah, from a team, from how well, from getting the most out of the talent that they have, this is probably the peak of that.
They are 100% bought in, 100% bought in. And they are so well coached, and they have the perfect leader at quarterback. And like you said, unselfish guys. And that doesn't happen very often, especially with what we're going to talk about here in a minute in this NIL portal world. They got a bunch of guys from the portal, but they got guys that believe in themselves, believe in what Indiana's doing, and good for them because they're the best story in college football probably in a long time. So great on them. Let's take a look real quick at the bracket. So, we are down to the finals. Hoosiers at last check were 7.5-point favorites. We're not going to pick against the spread or anything today, but this should be an interesting matchup. Miami gets to play in their home stadium, but like I said, Mendoza is going to be going back home. I believe Mendoza's dad played with Mario Cristobal from what they were saying last night in high school, and you got D'Angelo Pons, the guy that had the pick 6 last night, former teammate of Jeremiah Smith in high school. So it's not like Indiana is depleted of all talent. They have a lot of talented guys and a lot of guys from Miami as well. But just overall, quick impressions, 30-second impressions of this matchup before, about 10 days away.
Yeah, I mean, I think Indiana's clearly going to be prepared and ready to go, and they're not going to beat themselves. Miami poses, as we saw, unfortunately, firsthand, a lot of problems. They are as strong on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball as any team that I've seen in a number of years. Dominant O-line, dominant D-line, and they play mean and nasty. IU can play well up front too, but I mean, that's Miami's recipe to win the game is win that battle at the line of scrimmage like they've done in the first 2 games and rely on Carson Beck to make plays, and he has made plays. They have a playmaker in Malachi Toney. They have a good running game. That's what they're going to have to do, but they're going to have to be pretty damn flawless in their execution. They're going to have to play the way they played against Ohio State and not the way they played against Ole Miss, where the mistakes and the penalties sort of reared their head again.
Absolutely. So what do you think about that line, 7.5?
It's one of those games where I feel like it's either going to be IU and kind of a blowout, or it's going to be really close. Yeah. So it really just depends. If you feel really good about Indiana winning, I would hit that 7.5 pretty hard. But if you're the Cinderella story could run out and Miami's really tough on the line of scrimmage, then I would, then you almost think about maybe as a Miami money line bet is maybe the way to go. That's kind of how I see it. I don't know. Well, it's tough. I've been counting out. I kind of all been counting out IU, and I think now that we're believing, and that's the only thing that maybe concerns me real quick is that now like everybody's a believer. Yeah. And oh my God, now they're starting to get this best team ever thing. Yeah. Like that's, not necessarily Cignetti won't let them have a letdown, but they could just have like a game where the bounces don't go their way. Right. There's a big play early on. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to lead if you're comfortable laying a lot of money, a lot of juice, Indiana money line might just be the best bet there. I think they're minus 320 or something like that, but we can get into that next week. All right, let's get into the dirty part of college football, and that is currently the transfer portal. So nearly one of 3 players in college football are in the transfer portal. I believe there's over 4,000 players in the transfer portal, some of which will never find a home, ever. Like if you enter the transfer portal, some coaches are probably like, peace, you're out of here. You're dead to me. Other coaches are probably like, hey, trying to get some of those guys back. Ohio State has like 25 or 26 guys right now in the transfer portal, which I think last year they had like 15, 16, which, I think that's about standard nowadays. And, the transfer portal, in my opinion, was set up for, let's use Youngstown State's quarterback, for example. He actually is going to stay at Youngstown State, Bo Brungard. He won the Walter Payton Award, which is basically the Heisman of FCS football. I can tell you with certainty, he was offered $500,000 at minimum to transfer to 2 different schools, at least 2 that I'm aware of. And he ended up staying. He's comfortable where he's at. He's happy. But that's an example of a transfer portal. What it's maybe he wasn't out of high school one of the top talents, and he's reached a level, and a bigger school is now like, hey, we can give you a bigger showcase. We can pay a little bit more money. I think that's a good example of a transfer portal. Maybe another thing would be a guy comes out of high school. He's a 5-star. He's great. But you know what? Maybe he just like developed a lot earlier than some of these guys and just isn't quite ready. And then he can transfer down to like, I'm just going to throw out a school like a Boise State or like a UNLV or even at the FCS level, a Youngstown State, a Montana State, a South Dakota State, something like that. And that's, to me, what the transfer portal was designed to do, to give guys an opportunity to go play, not to become a free agency pool of going to have teams bid on you and go to the highest bidder. I just don't like the idea of it becoming NFL free agency every single year. And there has to be some guardrails, whether it's making guys sign 2-year contracts if they're doing that. And then, hey, whatever, or you get 1 free transfer. But if you transfer a second time, you got to sit out a full year like it used to be. Yeah. Or if your head coach leaves, then you can transfer free again, something like that. So what's your overall thoughts on the portal and what it's become?
Yeah, it's a mess. Like all the things you said, including next to the timing of all of it too. Yeah. It's just like, it just needs a complete overhaul. And unfortunately the NCAA is just, historically inept, hands off with everything and inept. Whether it's like Nick Saban or somebody that you need to kind of put in charge of this thing to clean it up. I think that you're right. It needs guardrails. It's getting really ugly. Players, and especially, you see it in the NFL all the time and in professional sports, but it's probably even worse in college because it's like, this is really truly the first time any of these kids are really seeing money for the first time. And it's like, it's so easy to early on. And the younger you are, the more you're likely to just chase dollars around, as opposed to like, you get a little bit older and wiser, you realize that is, well, nice, not the end all be all of the world, but it's, and now you have agents involved, and it's just like, you just have, anytime you introduce money, I totally am fully supportive that college athletes should get paid in some capacity, but it's just gotten ridiculous. It needs to be just completely overhauled. And yeah, you're right. This is not meant for, 1/3 of the players in college football to transfer. And we shouldn't be scrambling to keep Bo Jackson and scrambling to keep these guys and upping offers and all that shit. And people that barely saw the field asking for more money. It's just not
right.
You pick the school and the coaching staff and the environment that you feel like is going to be best suited for what your goals are. And if that changes, that's one thing. But if it's just okay, I didn't play as much as I thought, or somebody else just offered me more money, so I'm going to go somewhere else. That's probably part of why you see this so much, because it's I take the big check for somewhere else, and then I realize that place sucks. So now I want to get back into it. And it just becomes a cycle. I think once you start changing, it's easier to keep changing. And yeah, it's a black eye on college sports right now.
It is.
And maybe a salary cap of some sort.
I think supposedly some sort of salary cap, around the $20 million mark that universities can pay out now, but there's other avenues. There's other avenues. Like Jeremiah Smith this past year, I know he was making somewhere, I believe, in the $4 million range, but $3 million of that was probably coming from Adidas, $500,000 from Red Bull or whatever. It's not coming from the university, which that's fine. He's earning that money. He's the best player in college football. That's fine. But it's not meant to be this. I'm going to use Chaz Coleman, for example. He's a kid from Northeast Ohio. He's from Warren. He was on Ohio State's radar. He still might be an Ohio State Buckeye. But this was a kid that was he's played defensive end now in college. He played at Penn State. Obviously, a coaching change. He has every right to go in the portal, and that is his right. And one thing I will say for these players, your career is not very long. The shelf life of a football player is not very long. So yeah, go get your money. But where the guardrails need to come in place is we shouldn't be fighting over is he going to get a Bentley or an Aston Martin or plus $1 million plus 1.2 for this or whatever. It's the portal was designed for guys to get paid, yes, but it wasn't supposed to be this free market crazy situation of guys getting Lamborghinis. Okay, give them a car, give them some money where they can travel, or their parents can fly in and see them play. But I don't know what it is, but maybe we need to have a cap on some of these lawyers too, and some of these agents and what they're making. I don't know what the answer is, but guardrails have to be in place.
Yeah, or if you really want what's best for the kids, give them a little money now and put money in some type of trust that they can have access to when they reach a certain age, so they don't just piss away all the money before they blow out their knee and don't end up in the NFL. So I think you're going to see a lot of sad stories that come out of this, just like you do already with sports, where people get all this stuff thrown at them. They never turn into anything. They spend all their money. They don't understand how to manage their money. And there you have it. So yeah, it's ugly. And there's also a misperception, I think, maybe out in the country that Ohio State thrives in the portal and they can get anybody they want. It's that's not happened. Texas Tech spent more money than Ohio State spent. And now you're coming down to if it's, you want to have that billionaire, you want to have that Mark Cuban or that Larry Ellison who's willing to throw a lot of money into it. And it's just, it's evened the playing field in some regards, but it has created a lot of mess.
I don't hate the parity. From an Ohio State perspective, you always want to be the biggest, you always want to be the best, but it's nice to see Indiana competing. We obviously don't want them beating us, but it's nice to see some of these schools rise up. But the NIL in the portal was not designed for Brendan Sorsby, an average quarterback from Cincinnati that could be maybe a second, third round draft pick. Go to Texas Tech for $5 million. That's not what this is about. And good for him for getting his money, but again, he's doing what the system's allowing him to do, but it's not the player's fault. It's the system that fucked up, and they have to figure out something for this. So, we'll move on. Speaking of one of those guys, Bo Jackson is back in the fold with the Buckeyes. he had a really nice freshman season. I would call him very good, not great yet. He's got to improve in pass protection. He's got to improve like breaking tackles and just doing some of the little things. And again, that's part of being a freshman. You got to earn you got to build time. And you look at teams like Indiana, they're like 30 years old. Guys, I'm being a little hyperbolic there, but I saw a stat where I think Indiana's average age of players was like only 1 year less than the Green Bay Packers as a team, which is kind of ridiculous. But it's nice. I'm happy Bo Jackson's back. And again, some of these reports too, it's like that might or might not be true, but it's dragging a kid's reputation through the mud, whether it's true or false. And Ohio State, as well as Texas, Michigan, Penn State, you name your school, they have people following what's happening minute by minute with these kids. And, it's great because it's great for content for them and whatnot, but like, it's not good for the kids at the end of the day too. So I don't know what we do with this, but I something has to happen with the portal, and I didn't mean to go back too much on it, but let's move on to and I'm always long-winded. We go longer than I expect here, but let's just try to wrap up the Buckeye conversation here from a Ryan Day / what are we looking for in 2026 with Ohio State? So your thoughts on Ryan Day and like the program going into next season?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. Like, yeah, I mean, it's like, obviously you're losing a lot to the portal. We're going to have to make some additions there. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we've built a great thing. We have a great thing going. It's still a great thing. Like there are reflection when you reflect on kind of these last two games and where things may have gone wrong. I'll pick a few things that I think, we need to make sure that we address the offensive line. We need to, I think that was an area where we got dominated, and we need to get back to that kind of dominant Big Ten Ohio State O-line. For God's sakes, we just need a fucking kicker, like, that just make that happen. There's so many out there. Every team's like, that's one of these
unbelievable.
Yeah. So solidify your kicking game. Get back to the little Tressel mantra here. Solidify your line. Solidify your kicking game. And I think one of the things that Day is probably reflecting on now, and I've kind of been reflecting on, is like, we talked about all year our pace of play and how we kind of conserved energy throughout the season. And we played at the slowest pace, or one of the slowest paces in the country, which worked out great. The games went well. And I think we all just assumed that we could go from 75% on the throttle to 100% on the throttle and it would be fine. And we realized pretty quickly in both the Indiana game, but especially in the Miami game, when we got down 2 scores, we didn't know how to go full throttle.
Right.
And like, you kind of like, there's a little bit of a like reset maybe on that approach and what that means late in the year. And you kind of look at what Cignetti's doing, look at what Indiana's doing right now, how they do not let the foot off the throttle, and think about kind of getting that killer instinct back a little bit too. It's a delicate balance because you're risking, when you throttle up during the regular season, you risk injury, you risk you're playing more plays, more wear and tear, but we kind of realized that we weren't able to just all of a sudden flip the switch when we needed to.
I love that point because that's twofold. Well, that's multifold, but twofold because one, you're Ohio State. You have most of the time the best talent on the field. Go out and just dominate your opponents early, and then you can get some of these young guys in the game too that maybe weren't getting as much playing time and then end up in the portal because they're not getting that playing time. So I love that perspective. One, and you can pick and choose maybe which games you go full out, which games, like next year, the schedule's pretty brutal. It's going to be a tough schedule, but you know what? You still will be favored probably in at least 10 of your 12 games next year, if not all 12. So, Yeah, I love that perspective from pace of play. You're also going to be returning a really good quarterback that, let's not forget, because I think a lot of people forget how good Julian Sayin was this season. Okay, what could he improve on? He could obviously improve on just doing what Carson Beck did, getting those couple 3-4 free yards instead of throwing the ball away or just throwing it up for grabs. But this was the most accurate passer in all of college football history in the regular season. Let's not forget that. A 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, almost over 3,600 yards. This guy is going to be really, really good going forward. But what I hope Ryan Day does is coach in back the running aspect of him. It's like, hey, if you see 5 yards there, take the 5 yards. Don't take a big hit. Just take the 5 yards, slide, get out of bounds, whatever it might be. You don't want him taking unnecessary hits, but yeah, go take those free yards, go get the first down, move the chains, stop the clock, whatever it might be. That's what Julian Sayin can improve on. But I want a guy like Julian Sayin throwing the ball to a guy like Jeremiah Smith, the most accurate passer throwing to the best wide receiver. And Brandon Inniss is coming back. Whatever your thoughts on Brandon Inniss, he's still a really good receiver. They brought in a guy from UTSA. Hopefully he can add depth. Some of these younger guys, I think they're still going to try to go get a number 2 portal guy at wide receiver. We'll see what they end up doing. But you also have Chris Henry Jr. coming back, who's going to be a damn good wide receiver. He's going to be a true freshman, and they're not all built like Jeremiah Smith, but we will see. By some accounts, he was the number 1 player in the country. So Ohio State has a ton of returning talent. They are losing a lot. You're losing probably your best defensive player in Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese, Caden McDonald. But you know what? We lost 8 starters off that defense last year, and we were okay. We're going to be good. We might have to take a little bit of a step back, and maybe we're only a top 10 defense in the country, not number 1, but you're still going to have a really good offense, a really good defense, a really good head coach, and a lot of young players that decide to stick around are going to have great opportunities to succeed next year. So,
and I would say, when in doubt, throw it to number 4. I know he was injured for a piece of the season, but we kind of underutilized Smith during the season. And especially he probably could have and should have had 20 targets in that Miami game because they weren't able to stop him.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I think sometimes we think about game plans and play calling and something like that. But sometimes you just need that old school Tecmo Bowl play sheet where it's run left, run right, pass left, pass right. And sometimes it's if they're not stopping the pass to Jeremiah, keep running the pass to Jeremiah. I know you can't do it every single play. I get that. But to an extent,
yeah. Or he eats up so much of the coverage that, you have somebody else open. That's where Carnell Tate was able to eat. And that's where, Max Clare and Inniss and whoever else was able to get theirs too. So this team will return its number 1 quarterback, number 1 running back, number 1 wide receiver. I'm pretty sure, at least out of all the playoff teams, that's the only team that can say that for going into next season. So, we have some players to replace Carnell Tate, obviously, and some of the defensive guys that I mentioned, but this team is going to be just fine. And one last point on Ohio State before we move on. Since 2012, 165-21. I know there's been some losses in there that should be wins, but you know what? 80. What other program would not take nearly 89% winning percentage? So you're winning 8 out of every 9 games, basically, and you haven't lost more than 2 games in a season since 2011. So give me a break on any of the people that are shitting on Ohio State and saying, what a joke of a program. It's come on, they are literally the model of consistency. And they're rage baiting, and sometimes I take the bait, but yeah.
And in looking at this, and we could go through it later at another point, but how many of these years that we didn't win the national championship did we lose at some point to the eventual national championship? Yeah. Obviously this year. Yep. Last year we won the title. The year prior we lost to Michigan. the team that won the national championship the year before we lost to Georgia. That's 3 out of the last 3 times we didn't win the championship. We lost to the eventual champion.
Exactly.
This year we lost to the eventual champion and the eventual runner-up. So, hey, it's like we're putting ourselves in the fray every year, and you can't ask for anything more than that. You just, that's just life. Look at any team throughout history, unless you're going back to like the Boston Celtics or some shit in the 60s, like it's going to be like, this is how it's going to be. You're getting in with the best and you're giving yourself a chance every year. And as great as we can be, more often than not, we are not going to come out on top, but we are giving ourselves an opportunity every single year.
Pounding the table like Brian Kelly at a press conference. Yeah. I love it. All right. Hey, 10 minutes on the Browns. 10 minutes on the Browns. So let's start with, obviously, Miles gets the sack record. Shedeur finishes the last 7 games going 3-4. Stefanski is now fired. So just, I guess, quick thoughts on the Brown season as a whole. We'll spend more time on this on our next pod, but like quick thoughts on just the 2025 Brown season.
Yeah, and obviously we measure success a lot different for the Browns than we do the Buckeyes. Like I liked the way the season ended. I am not going to sit here and say that I love Shedeur Sanders, but I believe that he's done enough to give himself an opportunity with more weapons around him to be the starting quarterback next year. And I would the worst possible scenario for me, and this being, I do like Mendoza, but I don't think that's even going to happen. Could happen, but like the worst scenario to me would be to start over with a rookie quarterback. If we decide maybe, hey, we want to get a veteran quarterback to challenge Shedeur and maybe win the job, that's one thing. But my preferred option is Shedeur comes back, we beef up the O-line, we beef up wide receivers, we get more weapons on the offensive side of the football and protection. To give him a chance. And yeah, if you want to bring in and I think you bring in a veteran backup, and depending on how much, it can be somebody to really challenge Shedeur for the job, or it can be truly just a backup. I'm good with that, but I think the kid's giving himself an opportunity to at least, let's see what we have here, because he did enough and made enough plays where you're like, this guy could be something. And he also made some terrible plays. Yeah. And you have an open coaching position. Yeah. You have an open coaching position right now, and needless to say, you gotta hit that. You gotta hit that, and you gotta hit the draft. And it's, we hit last year's draft, we gotta hit this year's draft. I would like to see in a coach somebody that's been there before. But you need to look at those leadership capabilities. Kevin Stefanski was a very good X's and O's offensive coach, and he had a lot of success in certain times, and he had 2 coaches of the year. I think he really failed this year, and I think he, whether you want to say actively or subconsciously, seemed like he was trying to sabotage Sanders or even sabotage the team. And it's kind of inexcusable looking back at how long he played Dylan Gabriel. It's either you had a lack of true football judgment, or you really didn't want to play Shedeur. I think it was the latter. And I think he just sort of lost. He sort of checked out. And I know the season ended well. I'm good with Stefanski going, knowing that he is a good football coach, but I really want to focus on bring somebody in that's done it before, that can lead men, and then get the coordinators to handle the X's and O's aspect of the game.
I love it. I'm in lockstep with exactly everything you said there. So we don't need to touch on the Miles stuff. I mean, he did an unbelievable job. Should be the defensive player of the year again. 33 tackles for loss, along with being the new sack record king, 23 sacks in a single season, which was fantastic. All right. Before we get into our real coaches, we're going to spend the last 5 minutes here. Give me your best top fictional coaches for the Cleveland Browns. I have a list of 11, but I want to hear your thoughts on this first.
Oh, you got a list of 11. Okay. So my number one, and I need to look up his name. Coach. Oh yeah. Okay. So it's like, I'm going really close to home here because it's a movie about the Cleveland Browns, and it basically encompasses everything that I just said. My number one fictional coach for the Browns right now would be Coach Penn, played by Dennis Leary, in draft day for the reason. First of all, there's a lot of parallels. I think we had the 7th pick in draft day. We have the 6th pick here.
Okay.
Coach Penn came from Dallas. He had won a Super Bowl. He's won before. He knows how to do it. He hates rookie quarterbacks. He made that very clear. He did not want them drafting a quarterback. And I think that I just said, I don't want us drafting a quarterback.
No Bo Callahan.
Yeah, no Bo Callahan. So I'm going straight up Coach Penn as my number one guy. But I'd like to hear your list.
All right. So he did not make my list. But I should have put him on my radar. I like the reasoning too behind that. So I'm gonna go with mostly leaders of men here, because that is what I think. Kevin Stefanski, offensive genius. I think a really good guy, a very good coach. But the Browns need another voice in that locker room. So I'm gonna start with Herman Boone from Remember the Titans. Give me some Denzel Washington playing Herman Boone as a rah-rah, get in your face, get up your ass kind of guy. And that's what the Browns need. Like, give me some freaking toughness on both sides of the ball. And, I think Herman Boone would set the record straight with a lot of these guys.
It'd be nice to play perfect in every aspect of the game, for a team that fucks up 6 games a year with stupid plays.
Amen. It's the attention to detail. And, I know he coached high school, but, and I know this is a fictional coach. He was a real guy, but we're going fictional draft here. Next guy, give me this freaking guy. Tony D'Amato. Also worked with a guy much like Shedeur Sanders in Jamie Foxx's character, Willie Beeman there on any given Sunday. So Tony D'Amato, I think, would be a hell of a coaching choice for
that's like a good almost Gruden parallel. Like I've been through the shit. I've been low and I'm back kind of thing. Yeah, I like it.
Hell yeah. We'll see. And just like that rough, scraggly old coach's voice too.
Every inch.
Now, if we're going to an offensive genius, and we might throw out Mike McDonald's name later, Coach Klein might be the most comp to Mike McDonald here. So the offensive genius with that, is as long as he doesn't lose that playbook, he's great. And he can take a weirdo like Bobby Boucher and turn him into, hey, we got our Miles as defensive player of the year. That's Bobby Boucher. Now you got to get the offensive side with a bunch of ragtag guys to get it done. So
I mean, those last 2 games of the year, Miles was pretty much doing straight Bobby Boucher every snap, which, hey, don't blame him.
Maybe the other team will just start punting us the ball on first down. It might be our best option. Next guy, Jimmy McGinty, the replacements. And again, like, I think so many of these comps, like Keanu Reeves almost reminds me of Joe Flacco a little bit. But like Jimmy McGinty, RIP, Gene Hackman, but like great coach, great leader of men, doesn't take shit. And even from the owner, that won't take shit from the owner. And, Jimmy Haslam might need to be put in place sometimes. So Jimmy McGinty might be a great possible head coach for the Cleveland Browns in our fictional coach talk here. Next guy up.
Hey.
I mean, he would not be a great high school coach, Bud Kilmer. But you know what? Again, doesn't take shit. I don't think this guy would do a great job in the NFL because you can't talk to players like that. These guys make more money than you do. But what was your thoughts on giving Bud Kilmer at least an interview?
I mean, sometimes you got to sell your soul to the devil, and this wouldn't be too bad. I think the racism might be a bit of a problem, but otherwise you can't argue with results, and that guy hangs banners.
Like giving it to Quinshon Judkins every play, and then drafting some white wide receiver to sweep after he does all the work. Man, yeah, Bud Kilmer, at least we're going to give him an interview, but I don't think he's getting the job. All right, and here were others I put on the radar. So, yeah, I mean, Hayden Fox, I think, didn't he dip his toe into the waters, the coaching waters? I know Minnesota State or whatever, but didn't he dip his toes into the NFL later on in that show?
He may have. I don't remember. I did watch that show, but I don't remember that too well.
It's been quite a while, but I give him a shot. Gary Gaines from, played by Billy Bob Thornton. Billy Bob Thornton has had some interesting interactions with the Cleveland star Halle Berry in his life. So maybe he can bring other good things to Cleveland with that. But his portrayal is pretty good. Coach Jack Langville, We Are Marshall, Matthew McConaughey, took a really bad situation, about as bad as it gets, even worse than the Browns situation, and then brought a team back. So he's getting an interview at the very least. Eric Taylor, he's got all the quotes, more of a gentle spoken guy, he's more of the Kevin Stefanski type, I feel like.
Yeah.
So maybe he's not getting the job, but we're going to at least give him an interview. How about John Goodman, Coach Harris of Revenge of the Nerds? I actually, I was doing some research on this just for a few minutes, but I remember that character, but it's been so long since I've seen it.
Oh my gosh.
I don't remember his portrayal. And then Coach Sammy Winters, the program, probably better at the college level than the pros, but we're at least giving those 11 guys an interview. So anyway, any other thoughts on the fictional coaches of the Browns?
I feel like you hit it. I mean, I don't know that there's that much more in football. You'd have to go to almost other sports, which, yeah, I think this is great. Maybe,
what's Kate Hudson's mom's name?
Goldie Hawn.
Goldie Hawn in Wildcats. She was the coach on that one.
And the guy in Not Another Teen Movie.
Can he play?
Fire on the sidelines.
Who was pretty much a spoof of Bud Kilmer.
Yeah.
So those are some of our fictional guys. So just thought we'd have a little fun with that. Who we'll wrap this up with this. Who is your ideal head coach of the Cleveland Browns in 2026?
I mean, I think I think it has to start with John Harbaugh, at least as the first guy you call. I think that the likelihood is pretty minimal that he comes to. I know it's his family, they grew up Browns fans or whatever, but it's I get it.
Situation.
Yeah, I get it. I have a gut feel that I know they're talking about the Giants, but I have a gut feel that because Miami kind of waited to fire Mike McDaniel, that there might be something brewing there with Harbaugh, or at least one of the candidates. That felt like we're going to keep McDaniel unless we feel like something better might come along. So, I mean, Harbaugh would be kind of at the top of the list for me. But I'm looking, like I said, looking at guys that have been there before. I don't know how much John Gruden, I think would be the perfect. I know there's some baggage that comes with it, but would be the perfect type of guy, leader of men, won it before. I'm not crazy about Mike McCarthy, but same idea. He has been to the mountaintop before. I would like that type of guy. And also you have your I don't think Brian Flores is coming, but somebody that's maybe tried it out once and maybe didn't have full success. Even Mike McDaniel, I would greatly prefer him as an offensive coordinator, but I do believe in guys that kind of had some success, but ultimately weren't fully successful the first time, but can learn from what they did wrong. I'm leery about you obviously can hit. And it happens all the time with guys that hit, and it happens probably more that guys fail with these coordinators that have never coached before. But you have to look at the beyond what they've done at their coordinator position and project out how their ability to lead is. So I'm strongly leaning towards the Harbaugh, the Gruden, blanking on the other guy, McCarthy. Yeah, guys that have at least coached before, and I would love a guy that could come in literally with this finger, and this is my ring finger, and show that Super Bowl ring day one and be here we are.
Yep.
I've been there. Listen to me, follow me. I know what it takes to get there.
I was not on the John Gruden bandwagon initially, but now that you have mentioned that, just hire really good coordinators and let someone just lead the team. I kind of love that idea. And Mike McCarthy was not on my radar either, but now that you've said his name, that's an intriguing name. I really like, I think Brian Flores, but again, some of these guys that you're picking, like if you make Mike McDaniel the head coach, you're taking away what he does best, is call the offense. If you make Jim Schwartz the head coach, you're taking away what he does best, call the defense. So yeah, I would like to see a CEO type leader. John Harbaugh would be number one in my book. So I'm going to say John Harbaugh, Jim Schwartz as a CEO type guy, but maybe still calls the defense, but bring in another DC. And then I like Mike McDaniel too. I like Brian Flores too. But if I had it my way, I would go John Harbaugh head coach, Mike McDaniel OC, and retain Jim Schwartz as your DC. That would be and get rid of Bubba Ventrone and bring in a decent special teams coordinator.
I would think if Harbaugh came along, you'd have to kind of give him the keys to the castle, and I feel like Andrew Berry would be gone.
Yep.
And he'd probably want to bring Todd Monken in as your OC, which is
I wouldn't hate any.
Do whatever you want to do. Like whatever the hell you want to do, do it. And if you don't want, like if John Harbaugh says Shador's not the guy, then I'll follow that guy into the gates of hell. He's earned it.
And we were bitching about NIL money and stuff like that, but you know what? When it comes to the NFL, like it's Jimmy Haslam's money. Go spend whatever you want on a head coach. Bring in the best guy for the best price. And if he wants to spend $20 million on John Harbaugh, give him the keys to the castle, let him do that, because God knows we need football people running football things.
And with the Watson thing, he kind of fucked it up. So he kind of owes it to us. Like, give him, that's what you can do. You could do, the only way you get Harbaugh is you give him the blank check, you give him full control, and you say, I also got one thing to offer that nobody else can. You get to play the Ravens twice every single year.
Stick it to him.
There you go.
Yep. Nothing would be happier for Cleveland fans than sticking it to the Ravens twice a year, besides sticking it to the Steelers twice a year. And one more thought. What if Mike Tomlin becomes available?
I was just going to say there could be a huge wrench if the Texans just pound the Steelers on Monday night. Like, man, I don't know. I would take Harbaugh over Tomlin, to be perfectly honest. But I would probably give them both pretty much the same offer. I would just give it to Harbaugh first.
Yep. Might be interesting. Zach Taylor is the only head coach with a job in the AFC North.
That is crazy.
the worst one of the four is the only one that's stuck around, but we'll see how that goes. So
where do you think Stefanski will end up? No chance Baltimore, right? No chance.
No. I would say it's between maybe three. So I'm going to say number one, New York, because he's a Philly guy, and I believe he owns a beach house in the New Jersey area. So I'm going to say Giants 1. I'm going to say Titans 2. Him and Cam Ward would probably pair well together. And I'm going to say Atlanta 2.5. So I'm going to say, Giants 1.
But you think he definitely gets a job?
100%. Well,
and I guess
99%.
And I guess the other wrench is Green Bay too. And that, depending on how they do tonight, LaFleur could be out as well, which I'd put him right below, right up at the top. But apparently Stefanski, they're talking about Stefanski, Green Bay would be a possibility if.
Oh wow!
Yeah, there's a lot. I don't know. Kevin Stefanski's a good when you name that, I was like, Tennessee sounds pretty good. Like, I think he would benefit from going somewhere where he doesn't feel that immense pressure day one like you would for the Giants.
Yes. But I know he is well liked in the NFL circles, and he's a really good coach. And the Browns were put in a bad situation the last several years with the Watson contract and trade. But you know what? Hopefully he lands in a better spot. The Browns land in a better spot, and we can all move on from this. So, all right, we're going to close out, but we can revisit this next week, see where we go from there. And we'll see what happens with the transfer portal, with the Buckeyes, them kind of going forward into 2026, and obviously the Browns. And we have plenty of time to talk draft which we will get to in a future show. So for Greg, I'm Justin. Everybody enjoy your weekend, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow